Today, we're going to talk about Bladeborn Battles, which I honestly think is the best way to start playing Warcry. And if you're a Warcry veteran, it's a fun variant for some super quick games. If you're not familiar, Underworlds Warbands are called Bladeborn Fighters when you play them in Warcry. These are fantastic looking miniatures and have a lot of character. You might already have some if you're a fan of Warhammer Underworlds, or if you don't, they're not particularly expensive to pick up, and personally I think they're some of the most flavorful miniatures GW currently makes. Bladeborn Battles are not new. We've actually had them since 2022 when they first appeared in the June edition of White Dwarf. But they're once again in the spotlight, as we've recently heard of an upcoming product called Crypt of Blood. This box has the Crimson Court and Xandar's Truthseekers facing off in a Warcry battle. Both these warbands are only around 500 points, so it's about half the size of a normal warband, enough to get a taste. The box comes with some scenery, a paper mat, tokens, and what looks like some basic rules. This is a really neat box, and I'm very much looking forward to it. But we don't have to wait. With just a little bit of prep, you can play today. The first thing we need are rules. Games Workshop have done a fantastic job in making Warcry accessible by having the rules available on their site in a PDF. In addition to the basic rules, you also can get the fighter profiles and warband abilities in the faction download. There are a few things missing, so down the line it might be worth your time picking up the additional books. The rulebook does not have the full narrative rules, so if you want to play a campaign rather than just a few quick pickup games, you'll want to get that. The rules for the fighters are the complete list from the compendium, but you don't have rules for any of the more recent warbands, or what we're going to be looking at today, the Underworlds warbands. Next, we need to pick up 2 Underworlds warbands. Maybe you've got some already, or you might just be planning to pick some up. Typically these warbands only stay in stock for a while, but on occasion you can find them in the Age of Sigmar section without the cards. The rules for Underworld's warbands are pretty scattered. They're mainly in the Tomb of Champions 2021 with a few appearing in White Dwarf since. A much easier way is to look for one of my videos, or look on the Optimal Game State website where I talk about those warbands, and you can make your own cards from the Warcry card creator linked in the description. You do need to make cards for each of your fighters, and also ability cards. There are 3 ability cards I would suggest making, one for the universal abilities, which can be found in the rulebook, a second one for the abilities your warband belongs to from the compendium, and the last one with the abilities unique to your Bladeborn Fighters. So now you should have 2 warbands, the rules you need, and some cards put together. What else do you need? Well, first we need some dice. Each player will be rolling 66 during their hero phase, and keeping them for the turn to use for abilities. You'll also be rolling dice when your fighters attack, which can be as many as 6 dice. So a total of 18d6, each player gets 6 for their hero dice, and a remaining 6 to be used as a pool for attacks. You do need a measuring device of some sort. A measuring tape is great, but even a simple ruler from school is perfect. You also need some tokens. The key tokens used here are for damage and activations. When a fighter receives damage, you place a damage token beside them or under a card. These tokens have values on them, 1, 3, 5, and 10. There are lots of different options on how you track damage, so find one that works well for you. The other main token is the activation token. After a fighter has taken its 2 actions, you put a marker beside them, or under a card, so you know they can't act again. Then at the end of the turn, you scoop all of them up, and you're ready for the next turn. It's also possible to spend individual actions, either as a reaction, or by taking the wait action. For that you'll need a token indicating that one of the 2 actions have been taken. Some battles will also have objectives or treasure tokens to fight over. I play a lot of different games, so I have a ton of tokens, but in case you don't, I've put together a PDF. It's linked in the description, so you can just print it out and cut out the tokens to use. The last thing we need to consider is the battle board, where you're actually going to play the game. If you already have some scenery, then use that. If you have 0 scenery, that's fine too. We don't have to worry about firing lines or anything like that. Terrain definitely makes the game more interesting, but you can still have a fun game without it. The Warcry board is 22 inches by 30 inches, which is the perfect size for a coffee table. In the Crypt of Blood box, you'll get a paperboard. The big boxes of Warcry have cardboard versions, which are a little bit nicer, but don't worry if you don't have either. Once we get to starting a game, we'll have some battle plan maps. These assume you have a board, so they show distances from the edge of the board. That way it's easy to measure. If you do not have a board and your table doesn't happen to magically be the perfect size, then you can take 2 approaches. The first is to mark out the board edges with something, maybe masking tape or books in the right place. Alternatively, just mark out the center and do all of your measurements from there. The long edge is 30 inches, so if we know we're supposed to place the model 6 inches from the edge of the short side, we know the board edge is 15 inches from the center, so we can place the model 9 inches from the center. Just a little bit of maths. Okay, at this stage we should have everything we need to actually play a game. Depending on the warbands you have, you might find one has a few more points than the other. If you can, see if the larger warband can lose a fighter or two to bring the totals closer. But don't worry about getting them exact. The focus should be about getting fighters on the table and getting some games in. Once you have your warbands, set up the table. If you have scenery, have fun and make an interesting looking battle. You don't have to worry about keeping the sides fair, because Warcry deployment gets you straight into the fight. There are 2 battle plans in the rule PDF. A battle plan has a victory condition and the deployment rules. I would suggest not using those battle plans, and instead using the ones that will appear while I'm chatting. These are battle plans that appeared in White Dwarf 477. A very fun aspect of Warcry is that it starts you into the action straight away. For most wargames, you have a turn or two at the start where everyone just moves into position. In Warcry, that can happen a little, but you split your warbands into 3 groups as evenly as possible, so there's a hammer, a shield, and a dagger. Then the deployment tells you where they start on the table. Rather than just being on the board edge, this can mean they can start right in the middle of things. The deployments for these plans, the ones we're looking at now, are a little bit more aggressive than normal, and these will place enemy fighters much closer than normal, so you can skip straight to the action. As you split your warband into 3 groups before deciding on the battle plan, you don't get to place everything in the perfect position. What you can do is look at all of the possible options, in this case the 3 battle plans, and see if you can find a pattern. Looking over these, I would recommend having the shield as your best warband, as they often start near the center. The Beset battle plan focuses on killing the shield and dagger, so I'd suggest having your next toughest group as the dagger. Usually battle plans will have some units come in turn 2 or even sometimes turn 3. This is actually pretty smart, as it reduces the time needed for the first turn. Later on in the game, fighters will die and they'll get removed, so the game will naturally become quicker. In Bladeborn Battles, however, we only have a few models. With these battle plans, every model starts the game on the table. Each of these 3 battle plans has a different victory condition. One is about controlling objectives, another about killing models, and the final is about carrying treasure. So you've got a good amount of variety. Games should be fast, so if you end up in a bad position where you don't think you can win, just play to have fun, and soon enough you'll be moving on to the next game. Bladeborn Battles, in my opinion, is the best way to get started with Warcry. But there is another cheap way to get some models onto the table. The Warrior Starter Set for Age of Sigmar is one of the cheapest entry points into Age of Sigmar, and that's also true for Warcry. It's very cheap by Games Workshop standards, as it's designed to be a gateway product. For Warcry, it gets you 2 full warbands, for the Stormcast Thunderstrike and the Cruel Boys. The Stormcast come to about 915 points, while the Cruel Boys come to 1055 points. Alternatively, if the Stormbringer magazine collection is available in your region, that's another great way to get similar fighters. The reason I don't recommend this box is because it locks you into these 2 warbands. You can use the heroes in other warbands within the same Grand Alliance, so Order for the Stormcast and Destruction for the Cruel Boys, but you can't use any of the normal fighters. While the Bladeborn Warbands are also in their own Warcry warband. As an example, the Crimson Court are part of the Soulblight Gravelords, and Xandar's Treeseekers are part of the Thunderstrike Stormcast. But there is a special rule for the Bladeborn Warbands. If you take the leader of a Bladeborn Warband as an ally, then you can take any or all of the rest of that Bladeborn's fighters as normal fighters. This means you can use all of your fighters in any warband in the same Grand Alliance. So you could use all 4 of the Crimson Court in any Death warband, and all 4 of the Xandar's Truthseekers in any Order warband. You can also combine Bladeborn warbands, so if you have the Sons of Velmorn, you can combine those with the Crimson Court to make a full 1000 point warband. Warcry is a really fantastic game. It's quick to play, has a ton of strategic depth, and makes for a great narrative experience. The Underworlds Warbands are beautiful models and make for great hobby projects. If you're a new player, give it a shot. And if you're an experienced player, maybe you can set up a demo to introduce one of your friends.
Thanks for making it all the way to the end. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Each week I put up a new video talking about one of Games Workshop's specialist games. The goal is always to try and make the best possible two-player experience. If this is something you'd find interesting, please subscribe to the channel and comment to let me know what you'd like to see in future.